Hey, thank you everybody for joining in today. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that is rarely discussed, as far as I can tell, among the realtors and their buyers. And that topic is rent to own versus buying a home. There's so much confusion and misinformation about both processes that I wanted to make a separate presentation just on that topic. So we have about 30 minutes. I'll try to stay on time so we don't go over. If we do go over a little bit, I'm going to rush through the slides, but everybody who attends, if I have your email address, I can send you the complete slides and we can sync up later after the presentation to discuss any topic that you feel need to be discussed in more detail. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. First of all, I wanted to make sure that you know that I have a meetup. So all of these events will be first posted on meetup.com, where I have my own group called Personalized Finance and Real Estate Advice for DFW families. After they're posted on Meetup, then I transfer that information to my Facebook. My official Facebook is elena.garrett.kwc. If you're not a Meetup member, then maybe liking or following that page will allow you to see other presentations posted on the topic of rent to own, owner finance, getting into a house, selling home, any kind of issue that are rarely discussed, but are nevertheless are very important to know, will be formed into webinars and posted on Meetup and on this Facebook page. Once the presentation has been completed, I will stop the recording and I will post the recording on my YouTube channel called Ask Elena about Real Estate North Texas. So if you missed this presentation and you just want to watch the recording of it, go to YouTube. In YouTube, search for Ask Elena about Real Estate North Texas, and then there will be a playlist called Webinars. So today on our agenda, we're going to first look at the concept of buying versus rent to own. We're going to look at the financial and personal considerations for both processes, the pros of each approach, the potential downsides of each approach, and then we'll look at the financials. We'll take a specific house and we'll say how much would it cost to rent it versus rent to own it versus buy it. And that might help you to put all of those personal and financial considerations into more concrete perspective. Okay, before we start, I always like to look at the state of the DFW home prices so you are more educated about what's going on in the real estate marketplace. Buying a house is no different than buying a car or buying a baby stroller. You need to understand what you want, how much it's going to cost, and in a short term, should you be buying now? Should you wait? Are the prices going up or going down? Right now, the prices have been going up since about 2019. We can see this increase. They really jumped up between 2021 and 2022. And right now, because the interest rates started to go up, we see a slight downturn, but the downturn is still at about the same place when we were, let's just say, about 6 months ago. So right now, the prices are still significantly higher than they were 3 years ago. So if you were looking to buy 3 years ago, but you didn't purchase at that time, then you basically put yourself in a position where now you have to pay almost double for the same house. Okay. Alrighty. Concept of rent to own. Because if it's your first house and you're not very familiar with the process of buying and maintaining a home, I'm going to look at the example of purchasing or leasing to own a car, because most of us already own the car and we can kind of imagine what lease to own on a car would look like. So when you purchase a car versus lease to own a car, the pre-qualifications and approvals for lease to own are usually much, much lower than for purchasing a car. In a car situation, the difference may not be as big, but in a house situation, the difference is much bigger because the amount of the loan on each item will be so much bigger. When you lease to own a car until you own it, the maintenance and any kind of issues with the car usually are not your concern. Usually they're handled by the company that is leasing the car to you. If you bought a house or if you bought a car, then whatever maintenance issue that you have with that item is going to be your issues. Your commitment, if you didn't like the car that you leasing, you can ask the company to switch you to a different car. When you purchase the car, obviously exchanging that car for another car will require some type of negotiation, selling the previous car, buying a new car. So it's a much longer process. Once you in the car, you can select when you're renting to own versus purchasing the car. Your selection to rent to own is probably smaller, whatever they have available. If you were looking to buy a car, you could buy a really old car, a really beaten up car with weird modifications. When you're renting, you're probably going to be restricted to just newer models with less mileage and having pretty good interior inside, so it's not likely to end up being a limit. Monthly payments could be comparable, or leasing could be slightly more expensive than purchasing, or vice versa, just depending on your interest rate and how much you needed to put down. And also life changes. If for some reason you need to move out and turn the car in back to the leasing place real quickly, you could just drop the car off and walk away. If you were owning that car, you would have to figure out how to store it, how to sell it, who's going to sell it, etc., etc. So if you look at the process of leasing to own a car, it's very similar to the process of leasing to own a home. So let's look very quickly on a side-by-side comparison for buying a home versus renting a home from a standpoint of financial considerations. So when you're buying a home, you either need to have pretty high credit, let's just say for 640, 650, 660, 670, or if you don't have those 650 plus credit score, then you need to have pretty high cash savings. If you're buying a home, you will need to go through a long process of underwriting, usually about 30 days. And if that process fails because the documents could not support your claims for income, then you can actually lose money because you already paid quite a bit of money during the process of selection and checking out the condition of the house. Usually to buy a house, you need 2 years of employment. You need a pretty high reported income, pretty low reported debt. It's best to have a W-2 rather than 1099. 1099 could be significantly more difficult to use when you're trying to purchase a house. When you're buying a house, whatever is today's price of the home and whatever today marketplace interest rates, this is what you're stuck with. You cannot adjust it. If you need to buy a house that needs remodeling, the remodel will cost you some money on top of everything that you just paid to purchase the house. However, you do begin immediate ownership. And when you buy a house, you have mortgage payments. And usually your taxes and insurance are part of your mortgage payment, but you might have a separate HOA payment, homeowner association payment. If after purchasing a car, an air conditioning breaks, a roof leaks, or the disposal stops working, it's completely your headache to find and hire contractors and pay those contractors, unless those items are covered by your homeowner insurance. Let's look by comparison what's financially involved in renting to own a home. When you rent to own a home, you don't need quite as high a credit, and you don't need quite as high cash savings. So you can get away with medium credit and low cash savings, but never with poor credit. Poor credit still doesn't work. Poor credit to no credit still will not work for a rent to own. Medium credit will work. Usually in order to qualify and secure approval, you need to have about 3 to 5 days. In most cases, the application is free. In some cases, the application is paid depending on the program. And if you cannot get approved and you cannot secure the approval, there is no money lost. You basically walk away exact same. It's no worse than when you started the process. With rent to own, you do not need 2 years of employment. Usually you need to show either 3 to 5 months of employment or 3 to 6 months of employment. If you're currently taking a lot of deductions on your tax returns, you can show lots of deductions, lower reported income as a result. Your debt could be medium, but not high. High debt will not work for a rent to own, but medium debt will work. W-2 and 1099 are about the same as far as ease of getting into a house. When you're renting to own a home, you're not buying a home at the current price. You're going to buy a home at a future price because you're going to buy it later. You're currently renting it, but the purchase price is going to be at a later date. You don't need to remodel after the purchase. Usually the rent-to-own process gives you homes that are either in mint condition or fairly new homes, and you have 3 years to decide if you actually want the house. You will have rent and savings payments rather than mortgage. You pay no taxes, no insurance, and no HOA. Usually those are already rolled into your rent. And all repairs, other than those that are specifically negotiated in your rent contract, are covered by the rent-to-own company. So from a standpoint of a financial considerations, buying a house is initially more cash heavy, and also if the house is older and needs a lot of repairs, then it can be potentially more costly to carry on the carrying costs could be much higher in an older home. As far as your personal situation, let's look at when the rent to own and when buying a house makes more sense. So if you want to buy a house, your best benefit from buying a house will be if you're already married or if you're a very stable couple who's been together forever and ever. If you're already getting very quick approvals of loans and credit cards, and if you're buying a car, it's instantly approved. If your life and income and career are very stable and unlikely to change in the next few years, and if you're very highly committed to the area and to the house, you already know that this area will 100% work for you. You already know that this house will 100% work for you. And you have a good understanding of home maintenance. So when you're selecting a home, you can predict what kind of maintenance is most likely to happen once you purchase a home. You also will need to be willing to do updates and repairs, and some people don't mind it at all. In fact, they're looking forward to making the space their own. In which case, rent to own has more benefits. Rent to own has more benefits when you're just dating somebody, but you haven't married yet, or you haven't been dating for such a long time. So the likelihood of you potentially not working out is higher. And this way, you don't need to dissolve quite so many obligations in case it doesn't work out. If your credit had recent blemishes, and let's just say when you're applying for a card or when you're applying for cars, you're from time to time rejected. So in that case, rent to own is probably going to make more sense. If your life or income or career has some degree of instability and you're not 100% sure if you're going to even be in the same job or in the same income category, in the same area 1 or 2 years from now. If you're new to the area, if you're moving from another city or another area or another state, and you're just exploring the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but you're not 100% committed to any specific area, it might make sense for you to do rent to own in case you decide that the area that you picked initially is not that great for some reason. If you're not very used with the home maintenance and you cannot easily predict what home maintenance will be required in a home, rent to own might be a good step, like half step toward that process. And if you don't absolutely hate repairs or dealing with contractors or worrying about saving money for potential repairs, and you want somebody else to worry about it, and you just make one smooth monthly payment, then rent to own might be an easier process for you. So what are the upsides of buying a home? Let's just look first at buying a home, because eventually rent to own leads to a purchase of a home. So buying a home is the ultimate outcome. So let's just look at what if we bought a home straight up? What are the upsides of that approach? When you're buying a home, you have a bigger selection of homes because you can buy homes with larger acreage. For example, if you want a house with 7 acres because you want to do a little farm on it, you totally can do it because this is completely your property. Nobody else has partial say in what you can and cannot do in a house. Also, if you want to buy an older home that needs some repairs and you don't mind doing that, you're kind living into it, or if you want to add amenities, like for example, you want a kind of special lighting or special features, you can add those features. In that case, your buying a home will make more sense for you at that time. Immediate ownership. When you are buying a home, the home ownership completely transfers to you and you start to begin enjoyment of home value appreciation. So remember that graph that we saw at the beginning of our presentation, how the home prices went up. If you were owning the house at that time, this graph going up will show how much you have now accumulated money, basically passively. It's almost like passive accumulation of wealth. That wealth is now yours. Also, your monthly payments are secured for the next 30 years, with the only change that you could maybe pay higher taxes every year, but those are incremental changes. And you can buy and you can take a home and you turn it into a rental within 1 year of moving in. So if your plan is to buy homes and then potentially become a landlord, you can take the home that you just purchased and turn it into a rental, usually within 1 year of a purchase, as per your loan conditions. Now, what are the upsides of rent to own approach to purchasing the home? When you do rent to own, you don't need to be stressed so much about how much cash you have or whether your credit is perfect to secure a best credit score. Those considerations right now are not important. You have much lower initial costs. So for example, depending on the area in the home that you're buying, some buyer that I'm working with right now, if they want to do 20% down, 10% down, their initial amount of money that they need to bring with them to the table to sign the paperwork is close to $80,000 to $100,000. When you're doing rent to own, if they did the rent to own for the same house, their initial cash investment could be closer to $12,000 to $15,000. So there's a huge difference between $12,000 to $15,000 and $50,000, $70,000, $80,000, $100,000. When you're doing a rent to own approach, you can, if you know that your income could increase in the future, or if you let's just say you just now started a new job that can potentially pay you more, if you're finishing studying for a program that once you graduate you can pay more, at that time your income will be higher and you will be able to easier secure a loan. Also, if right now the interest rates went up and if you bought right now, you would be locked into a pretty high monthly payment. With the rent to own, you can watch the interest rates, and when they start to dip again, you can secure an interest rate at that time and secure yourself a lower monthly payment for the next 5, 10, 30 years by simply timing the interest rates while you're already living in a house. And also you can time the prices of the home. As you can see the graph, when we looked at the graph at the beginning, it wasn't like straight up like this. It was kind of going up and down, almost like a wave. If you work with a real estate agent and that real estate agent is any good, she will be able to teach you how to time riding that price wave in order to get the best deal for your money. With the rent to own, if you currently struggle to find money to save for a down payment, for repairs, so on, then the rent to own process is a really good process to make you more disciplined, because it takes money out of your rent and puts it into a savings account automatically without you having to do anything. You just make one monthly payment and the savings are deducted from that monthly payment and put into an escrow account where you don't have to worry about your own self-discipline. With rent to own, you have predictable monthly payments because your monthly payments are stated in your rental agreement, and no increase in taxes, no increase in cost of living, no increase in maintenance expenses can affect that monthly payment. You know exactly what your monthly payment is going to be for the next 3 months or for the next 3 years. The costs of ownership are very predictable again because you don't have the maintenance issues. If you're shopping for a home with a rent to own, typically, for the same amount of money, you can get a more upgraded home with better features, but with less cash out of pocket for you. It's just a feature of rent to own, where rent to own program itself selects more updated homes to purchase because they don't want to deal with fixer-uppers. Also, if for some reason your life situation changed and you have to walk away from this area, you have to move due to job relocation, or your relationship not working out, or something else happened, and you have to walk away from the house very quickly, there is no possibility of foreclosure and no headaches. All you need to do is to turn in a notification that you're ending your rental contract, and you can walk out of the contract at no extra cost or delay. So what are the downsides of both buying a home and renting the home to own? The downsides of buying a home are, number one, your credit score. You might have to spend another year or two to get your credit score to the point where you get the best interest rates, for example, and the lowest monthly payment. But during that time, the prices of homes continue to grow. So even though your credit score is better, you might still end up paying more for a home because the prices, the base prices of homes have increased. Higher initial cost, no matter how low is your down payment, it's still probably going to be higher initial cost than rent to own. That's what I typically observe. Because this, other than down payment, you also have closing costs, you also have prepaids, title costs, surveys, appraisals, all of that adds up to a higher initial cost before you can even move into the house. If, depending on your type of a loan, you might have difficulty finding an updated home, not because they're not available in your price category, but because you cannot compete with cash buyers, for example. So when you have a loan, you are lower on the ladder of importance to the seller of the home than a cash buyer. So when you have a loan situation, you might be submitting 10, 15, 50 applications to purchase a home and still end up with no home because no seller picked your offer among available offers. You also have very high commitment to a house. Let's just say that you moved into a house and lo and behold, you have triplets on the way, right? And now the 3-bedroom, 2-bath that you just purchased is no longer going to work for you. So how you're going to sell that house and buy a new house with triplets on the way? So that high commitment to a house can become a logistical and financial hurdle to finding another home that works better for the current situation. Again, difficulty exiting the house. If you have a situation where you need to add more people to the house, or your job moved from Fort Worth, let's just say, to Forney, it might be difficult for you to sell the house quickly depending on the state of the market and the condition and the updates in the house. So the money that you could have spent on relocating are currently locked in the house. And of course, responsibility for repairs and rising taxes are completely on you, not on anybody else. As a result of potential disruption of your income, if you cannot afford the mortgage payments, then you might have to go through a process called foreclosure. But when you cannot just exit the house, you cannot say, I no longer want the house, I no longer want to make the monthly payments. You don't have that option. You have to make that monthly payments, or you sell, or you go through foreclosure. And foreclosure can become a big, big burden on your credit in the future. So the risks and costs of buying a home are higher. What about rent to own? What are the downsides of owning or buying with rent to own process? Let's start with just the application. When you're buying a home with a loan, you might have 4 or 5 applicants joining their incomes together in order to qualify for a size of the house that you want. With rent to own, typically you're limited to 2 applicants per house, like mom and a dad, or mom and aunt, mom and daughter, whatever the combination, but usually just 2 applicants. So if you have like 5 people who plan to pool their money together, the rent to own might be more difficult. Usually rent to own companies do not like to buy older homes on acreage, unique homes. For example, if you want to have an earth home, living under the ground, and it's built out of earth, rent to own is probably not going to go for that one. Rent to own prefers cookie cutter homes, and they have some restrictions of how old the house needs to be or can be, how bad the quality is inside, and what are the various issues that might affect the ability to purchase the house. So title issues such as, for example, solar panels. So solar panels present a lease on a home. So that becomes messy, and the home of your dream that has solar panels may not be eligible for rent to own. Usually the rent that you're paying for a rent to own is higher than a regular rent, but about the same or even slightly less than a mortgage, depends on your down payment. When you do a rent to own purchase, you're going to purchase not now, but at some future date. Let's just say 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road. So the cost of the house today is not going to be what you're going to purchase it in 2 years from now. So if the house is worth $350 today, you're probably going to purchase it about $400 2 years from now. So you need to understand that whatever you're looking for right now, the cost will increase the longer you rent rather than own. You cannot, as you move into the house, the cost of homes in an area might start to go up, but you do not enjoy that appreciation. The rent-to-own company enjoys this appreciation. You may not be able to, depends on the rent-to-own program, because each rent-to-own program has their own bells and whistles in the program. Some rent-to-own programs restrict pools, others do not. Some rent-to-own programs restrict solar panels, others do not. Some rent-to-own programs will be able to buy a house up to 1 acre. Some might be able to buy a house up to 2 acres. Some may want to have no acreage at all. Also, you cannot buy a fixer-upper and self-remodel it. Rent-to-own does not want to own any fixer-uppers. And also, if you decide that you need to leave the area very quickly and you need to sublease the house, it can become very messy because you may not be allowed to sublease based on your lease with the rent-to-own. Any questions so far? Shelley, can you hear me?
Yes.
So based on what you've seen so far, do you have any questions before I move on?
No, ma'am.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So we're almost done, actually. Let's look at the examples of financials for both buying and renting. And to make it fair, so it could be like an apple-to-apple comparison, I said that let's just imagine that somebody's credit score is 610. And then for both programs, what a 610 credit score would end up costing them, because both buying and renting to own, the cost of the house, the monthly payment will vary based on your credit score. Because if your credit score is higher, you're probably going to have a lower interest rate when you're buying. And when your credit score is higher, you're probably going to have lower interest payment, lower monthly payment when you're renting to own. Now I'm going to take, because different rent-to-own programs have slightly different calculations, I'm just using DV Homes rent-to-own program as an example of a calculation, so we can just kind of look at least one rent-to-own program and know for a fact the cost for that rent-to-own program. Okay, so we have this house. Let's just say that, and you can Google it, it's a house that's really right now available for a rent-to-own. So it's 3710 Penny Lane, Carrollton. So it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So it's 2,000 square feet, 1986. Currently, it's priced at $380,000 with taxes of $4,334. This is very important because all of those items become a part of the calculation of the cost of the house. I looked at the appreciation in the area in the last 3 years. The prices in the area appreciated 15%, which means the house that's currently available for rent to own used to be 15% cheaper 3 years ago. Okay, so let's look at the financials. If we had the 610 credit score, what it would cost us right now to buy. I am assuming that with 610 credit score, you could qualify for 525 interest rates, although interest rates may vary by the time that you're able to lock in your interest rate. But let's just say today interest rate is 525, so we're going to calculate for today's interest rate. And I'm assuming that you're going to do 30-year fixed mortgage. So we're buying with FHA. FHA is a first-time homeowner program, 3.5% down, 5.25% interest rate, 30-year fixed. With this setup, your down payment would be $13,300 on that $387 home. The closing cost, the cost on top of the down payment would be approximately $7,500. So your total cash that you have to present to the lender in order to complete the signing of the paperwork to take the possession of the house would be approximately $21,000, just a little shy of $21,000. When you move in, your monthly payment will be $2,900. And all responsibility for repairs in this 1986-year-old home is going to be completely on you unless they're covered by your homeowner insurance. Okay, if we go with the rent-to-own program called DV Homes, if your credit score is 610, your down payment will be about $7,600. As you can see, it's about what, $5,000, give or take $5,000 less than with a purchase. Your total cash to move in would be a down payment plus first month's rent. So if your down payment is $7,600, your total monthly rent is $2,800. Then 7.6 plus 2.8 comes out to about $10,400 to move in. As you can see, it's about a half of what you would need to have on hand in cash in order to purchase. Your total monthly payment, complete monthly payment, would be about $2,800 with flexible saving plan. They have different savings plan, and I'm not going to go into the savings plan discussion right now, but let's just imagine that you took the choice of a specific type of down payment, 2% down payment, and flex saving plan. This would be your monthly payment. When you start to rent this house, your initial rent agreement will contain a provision that will say that you can buy this house back within 18 months at the price of $405,000. So as you can see, your purchase price is about $25,000 higher than the if you bought it right now with 3.5% down in this calculation. So your total cost of the house would be higher 18 months from now. And if you applied for a mortgage at that time, your mortgage would be approximately $3,000 and some, and some change, assuming that you're doing 3.5% down. Now, if you waited full 3 years to buy a house, your total purchase price would be about $430,000, and at that time you would need to be able $200. So as you can see, it behooves you, it really benefits you to buy the house back as soon as possible, because if your monthly payment right now is $2,900, you might have to pay another almost $100 or over $100 in monthly payments if you wait 18 months to buy back. Or you might have to pay $300 more per month if you wait 3 years to buy back. But the upside is that right now, whatever you're paying right now, let's just say your monthly rent is $2,900, but then AC went out three months after you purchased it, and now you need to spend another $8,000 on air conditioning, right? You may not have that one immediately available, and what you're going to do then? You're going to sit without the air conditioning, you're going to buy window units or what? With the rent-to-own option, let's just say that you're paying $2,800 per month, which is slightly cheaper than your monthly payment here. And let's just say that your conditioning goes out. That is none of your problem. You just make a call to the rent-to-own program, say, I need a new air conditioning guy, or I need air conditioning unit, and you don't need to worry about how you're going to afford that. So those are the financial calculations for both rent-to-own and for purchase. Any questions, Shelley, on the financials? I don't want, because financials can be so complicated. I don't want to go over them too fast.
No, ma'am, I'm good.
Okay, sounds good. Well, that's actually pretty much it. I'm not going to spend a lot more of your time. I think this is pretty much the essence of what you need to know. If you decide that you want to go back and watch this, then you can look up Ask Elena about Real Estate North Texas on YouTube. And hopefully by tomorrow, this video will be uploaded to that channel. With that said, my name is Elena Garrett. I'm a realtor here in Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas. My phone number is on the screen. You can look up my website. There's not much for you on my website unless you are like seriously into reading, because I post a lot of data, post a lot of statistics for the area. So if you're not into numbers, it might be a little boring for you. But I do have multiple Facebook groups. One of my Facebook group that I do have, so if you're on Facebook and you're watching this, on Facebook, you can search for rent-to-own DFW, and you can see examples of homes that I'm posting that could be available for rent to own. So if you just wanted to get a feeling on what rent to own homes could look like. Now with rent to own, I have another webinar coming in about 30 minutes from now that will tell you how the rent to own process works. But just a spoiler alert, when you're doing rent to own, in most cases, you can choose any home for sale on Zillow. You just need to know how much is their maximum monthly payment. So just say your maximum monthly payment is $3,000 per month. Then you can reverse engineer. Let's just say $3,000 per month buys you $3,800 worth of a house, $387 worth of a house. You just go on Zillow, you Google all homes within $387. Now there are some restrictions on age. They cannot be like built in 1800s. They need to be built hopefully after 1970s, like 1970s plus. They cannot be too high of an acreage, like up to 2 acres, for example. But any home for sale on Zillow within those requirements, you can say that's going to be my home. Now, I also have another group called Seller Financed Homes. For those of you who are interested in the topic of seller financing, I specialize in seller financing as well. If you're interested in new construction homes, I have all the data on new construction homes that are available right now. If you love homes with pools, I specialize in pools, and I specialize in homes with acreage. So let's connect on Facebook. Follow me on Facebook because I post a lot of data. So if you go to this Facebook account right here, you will see how much data I post, how much advice I post, like buy advice, sell advice, interest rate advice, projections for increases in home prices or decreases in home prices. I'm a very data-driven person who likes to calculate my chances and my risks in advance, and I share all this information with you guys. With that said, I have nothing else to add. Now, if you have any questions whatsoever, let's go ahead and do a Q&A real quick, and then we are 8 minutes over our time, and I don't want to hold you any longer than I promised that I said. Do you have any questions, Shelley?
No, I'm good. Thank you. I'm getting ready to follow you on Facebook. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Very nice meeting you, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Okay, have a good day.
Thanks. Bye.